Today's video has been sponsored by our partners at the SOJOURN, the award-winning audio drama that has just released its third volume. You can find it on Google Books, Apple Books or iTunes, and many others, as well as through the Patreon linked below, which is an especially good deal as you can get every single episode just for pledging at the lowest tier. The higher tiers have bonus content such as the visual dictionary and anthology shorts. If you don't know what the SOJOURN is, you can visit their YouTube channel for free samples and extra lore content like ship breakdowns. The SOJOURN Volume 3, out now. Hello everybody and welcome back to Spacedock. I'm Hujuana, and as it's spooky month, I felt like discussing a pair of sci-fi horror-ish movies that came close to greatness but managed to throw it all away with some poor decisions: Prometheus and Sunshine. I know this is a little bit different to our standard content, but don't worry, spaceship technical stuff will still be included, so hold on. While we did try to be careful with spoilers in our USCSS Prometheus breakdown where it was possible, this video will be going all out on spoilers for both movies, so if you haven't seen them, be warned. We're going to start off with Prometheus, as I'm sure more of you are familiar with that than Sunshine, but if you're not aware, it's set in the Alien franchise some 40 years before the original film and explores the origins of humanity and the xenomorphs themselves. And it has a cool spaceship. I mean, look at the engine, landing leg pod, rotating pivot system. How can you not love that? And yes, this ship is far more visibly advanced than the Nostromo that followed it, but this thing is a beyond cutting-edge expedition compared to the Nostromo, which was just a space truck. And not everything is more high-tech. Prometheus's cryosleep is far more stressful on the body than its successor's version. So that's what Prometheus is. But what were some of the things wrong with it? Well, one of the common complaints that I can remember people having was the unclear motivations of David, the ship's android and favoured son of billionaire magnate Peter Weyland. At times, he certainly can feel like he's just doing things because the script requires him to, especially the plotline with the space goo that eventually becomes the Deacon. In fact, that whole plotline feels tacked on after the fact and poorly integrated with the rest of the film just to give it a more Alien franchise appeal. But with David himself, the weird script stuff can at least be interpreted as him being a bit mercurial and unrefined as an early generation android. He's not supposed to be a corporate drone like Ash from the original film, so acting the way he does isn't out of character. The next issue is far more understandable and is the way that the supposedly professional scientists act more like dumb kids. Nowhere is this more obvious than when Fifield and Milburn encounter the Hammerpede while trapped within an alien structure. Fifield, a geologist, is pretty scared of this place, which feels genuine. I wouldn't want to be stuck in a weird, ancient underground temple on an alien planet overnight. Would you? Okay, so he's fine, but Milburn. Oh, Milburn. The biologist, who sees a completely unknown creature acting very similarly to a cobra and decides, yes, I'll try to go touch this thing. That's smart. This ridiculous interaction can be fixed if we have the Hammerpede hypnotise Milburn. I mean, that may have been what it actually did in the film, but it wasn't obvious whatsoever if that was the case. So to fix that, Milburn needs to shut up for once. If he was staring blankly at the thing and stopped responding to Fifield, it could be assumed that the weird snake thing is hypnotising him. But how? Well, one way could be to have strange patterns and colours on the skin of the Hammerpede, somewhat like the chromatophores that cuttlefish use to great effect. Or, for a better example, the mesmer from Subnautica, which mesmerizes its prey and forces it to move closer so that they like the video and subscribe to the channel. But what was that? Where was I? Oh yeah, Prometheus, where another scene where characters do not act like they should is after Shaw undergoes emergency surgery to remove an alien creature that was growing within her. Following this, she stumbles into the medbay to find Peter Weyland himself being doted on by medical assistants after waking from a secret cryosleep pod. One of the assistants does give her a robe, but no one is even the slightest bit interested in why she is covered in blood and has staples in her abdomen. Why? Sure, Weyland is the big important character in that scene, but no one is even curious about Shaw? It just stinks of that script embiggening around the space goo and alien implantation, which could be integrated a bit better with just a small amount of effort. I can understand Shaw not wanting to talk about the horrific ordeal she just went through, so we can sort of cover over this problem by just having her put some clothes on before staggering to the medbay for painkillers or something, but that still doesn't make much sense. Maybe delay Weyland waking up until after that? Have him and his orderlies all rush in while Shaw is already in the medbay after patching herself up, rather than the other way around that we see in the movie. And the last obvious problem with Prometheus, that stupid rolling ship scene near the end. This has two problems, the more obvious one of the characters running the wrong way, but also before that in the physics-defying way the ship starts rolling in the first place. It smacks into the ground, sort of slows down to a near halt, then bizarrely keeps rolling forward rather than tilting off to the side. If it didn't do this, if the ship just fell sideways and went splat like it does at the end of the scene, it might have been more believable for Vickers to get squashed by it. Just avoid the dumb problem entirely, as it looked terrible, it was cheesy and tonally inconsistent with the rest of the film. Speaking of tonally inconsistent, that is exactly what happened to the last third of Sunshine, the 2007 film about a crew of astronauts sent aboard Icarus II in order to fix the dying sun with a big-ass bomb. It's a bit of a crazy premise, but honestly, it works, especially as the movie is about the crew overcoming a series of catastrophes to complete their vital mission. And, like Prometheus, there's some themes of humanity meeting its creator, or at least a being of incredible power, and not being prepared for it. The problems for the crew start after they change course to rendezvous with the lost Icarus I to hedge their bet and get themselves a second bomb. This decision leads to the ship taking damage on its huge sunshield, which then cascades into crew deaths and other parts of the ship being damaged or destroyed. Things start to go off the rails after they dock to the Icarus I, and it changes from a tense, enthralling thriller with a focus on the people on the mission into a dumb supernatural slasher film where Pinbacker, the commander of Icarus I, doesn't know what genre of film he's in. The whole concluding act is just a cop-out. It's like the writers couldn't think of anything technical to mess with the crew, so they chucked in a blood-soaked murderer with spooky space powers derived from the sun. We already saw that Pinbacker messed up Icarus I with this solar obsession, and we already have a character going the same way on Icarus II. The film did not need more of that to ruin an otherwise fantastic sci-fi story about pushing the boundaries of what is humanly possible. What should have happened instead is no Pinbacker. He died along with his crew. Icarus I is just an empty ghost ship. The final act should have just been more of what we already had, and we can start out with the unscheduled undocking that Pinbacker almost certainly triggered. And we do this with what I promised at the start of the video, technical spaceship stuff. Specifically, refueling Icarus II using Icarus I. Why would they do this though? Perhaps the crew discovered that they never actually had as much propellant as they thought they did, as they were deceived by those back home. So after adjusting course to meet Icarus I to get the second bomb, they would not have had enough to finish the mission. So they refuel from Icky 1, but oh no, the procedure went wrong, destroying the docking port and separating the ships. Just as a note here, you don't instantly freeze when exposed to vacuum. This is a completely ridiculous and frankly cartoonish thing to happen. Please don't do this in your own sci-fi creations. Vacuum exposure isn't healthy, but you're not going to turn to ice in seconds. After the docking failure, there are 5 crew left on Icarus II, as well as Pinbacker, who unfortunately drives the final act of the film. So how can we remove him but keep things roughly the same? Firstly, Trey being overwhelmed by his guilt from mistakes earlier in the film is unchanged. Without Pinbacker around though, what could cause Kappa to be separated from the rest of the crew and get stuck in the EVA airlock? Well, we could just have another technical thing go wrong. Something like one of the fuel tanks violently depressurizing after the botched refueling operation, which continues the theme of cascading failures. This could then also lead to Corazon's death in the greenhouse through loss of atmosphere or something, and also be the catalyst for the mainframe computer needing to be reset and resubmerged within its coolant. That claims Mace, who urges Kappa to deploy the bomb. So we have similar things occur to the crew, but they are not at the hands of a sunburnt weirdo with magical powers. Kappa is still forced to break out of the airlock, he can still split the ship in two and make that amazing leap through the void, and he can still end up where he needs to be for the big finale. The only thing I can't think of is what Cassie would be doing in all this. In the film, she heads into the payload chamber to try to escape from Pinbacker, leading to a dumb final battle that is just unnecessary. Should she have already been in the payload chamber when our added fuel explosion occurs? This could knock her out or something, trapped under debris until Kappa discovers her later on, which then leads to the beautiful ending of the film. If you've seen the movie, what would you have done here? Would you have changed it at all? Is the second half of Prometheus too messy to really be fixed with just a few adjustments? Did it need the inclusion of the black goo and proto-xenomorph subplot? Hit up the comments with your thoughts. I'd love to read them, as these two films are just fascinating to me, and I'm curious how others feel about them both. And if you want to see more videos like this, spread the word about this one. You can support the creation of videos like this more directly through YouTube membership and/or super thanks, and through our Patreon. Thanks to those of you who do so already, and thank you for watching.